JeffAboud, Director of Product Marketing here at Kennis Security. Today I want to just kind of give you a really good overview of the Kennis Security platform and a lot of the different aspects of the user interface. So when you first log in, the very first thing you're going to see here is the home screen. And the home screen is a really great way of getting just a really good overview of your entire environment. Think of it as an at-a-glance view of everything under your management. Everything here is role-based access controlled. So I'm a CISO level here, so I'm actually going to see the entire organization. But if you're in charge of, say, the Linux team, you're only going to see the score for that specific group. And what you'll notice here is up here on the top left, you're going to see your risk score, either for your organization or for just the group that you're in charge of. And then the rest of the top numbers here are really your key security indicators. Now, I'm going to caveat this right now. This is demo data. So you're going to see a lot of straight lines. You'll see things like MTTR being 978 days, in which case we probably would have been fired about 800 days ago if this were real data. But go with it and just use it as kind of an assessment of what the tool would look like. But just know that this is not real data. But you'll notice in these key security indicators, you're going to see what it is today, as well as what the amount of change has been in positive or negative direction over the last 30 days. Then the next thing here, and I know this is really super popular with our customers, is your total risk score over time. Now this dark blue or black line is my total risk score. And then the lighter blue number is actually our peer benchmarking score. So this is essentially the average score of over time of your industry peers. And here I have it set to healthcare and social assistance, but you can actually change this to pretty much anything else. But it'll typically go on your SIC code. And then next is the risk scatter plot. This is honestly one of my favorite parts, and I think what's going to really excite most CISOs, directors of security, and even managers, because essentially, and I'll get into a little bit this whole concept of a risk meter, but what we have is this risk meter, which is indicative of a specific asset group, and we'll get into that a little bit. But each one of these dots actually represents one of those risk meters or asset groups. So I can actually see at one quick view what my entire organization looks like. And if I have any questions about what any of those are, say, okay, what's that one? I simply mouse over it and it shows me exactly which one it is, how many assets are in it, how many vulnerabilities are in it. Now, if I click on that, it'll actually take me down to a report. So that's, again, a quick, easy way. If I notice anything that just doesn't jive with what I think it should be, I click on it, I get straight to the report, and now I can drill down on it. And you can actually see this by asset count, or I can toggle it over to vulnerability count. So a couple of different ways of looking at that. And then next we have our top performers and our worst performers. So this is essentially what has had the most and the least amount of positive movement over the last 30 days. So your top performers obviously have had the most, the best amount of positive movement over the past 30 days. Your worst performers have had the least amount of positive movement. It could be negative movement in the case of our demo data here. Of course, it's really, really, really bad negative movement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always negative. It could be positive movement, but just not nearly as much as the top performers. Now, the last thing here that I'll point out is our total ticket progress, and this is essentially just a nice way of seeing what my current tickets are, what my outstanding tickets are. If I've seen any spikes, like here, I think it's December 8th. Yeah. So on December 8th, all of a sudden I had 1,100 overdue tickets. So I may want to find out what the heck is going on there. Did IT just fall asleep at the wheel or something? I don't know, but it's a really nice way of just finding out really quickly if I have any sort of an issue. And then on the left-hand side here, I just have my connector runs. This is just going to tell me the most recent 5 connector runs and what the result was. So how many assets were synced. Now, if a connector run fails, rather than the green check mark, it's going to have a red X, and then it'll actually give a little sentence or so telling me why it actually failed. So it's a good way of just kind of getting a real quick glance at my environment. And then the news here. Right now we have it mostly tied to our blogs, but if anything were to happen, if there's a big vulnerability, big virus outbreak or something, one of our security experts would actually put some information in there. So you'd actually see that in here, and then of course it links straight to the site if you want to get more information on that. But let me just go to our Explore tab next. This is probably where we're going to spend about 99% of your time. And I'll select the Vulnerabilities tab first within that Explore tab. This, as you can see, kind of gives you a nice quick view of every single one of the vulnerabilities in your environment in priority order in terms of your kind of risk score. And you notice that we score all of the vulnerabilities in terms of risk between 0 and 100. 0 meaning no risk whatsoever, 100 being the most risk. And then we identify what the CVE is. We'll tell you what your CVSS score is. But of course, the Kenna score here is what you really want to pay most attention to. We just provide the CVSS score as essentially a point of reference. But then you can actually select any of those CVEs, and you can actually find out more information about them. So it'll give you a nice description of it. What is the fix? And in cases where there's a public patch available, it actually gives you a hyperlink directly to that fix. What are some known exploits? We know there are 5 known exploits against this. We know there are 2 pieces of malware that are against it right now. And then anything that actually came from your scanner. In this case, we have 2 different QualisGuard scanners that found this. And you'll notice that they give slightly different information. So we pull all of that in there. So we try to give you as much information as we possibly can right within the tool. So you don't have to go to external sites. We actually provide it all for you. So that was vulnerabilities. We score from 0 to 100. Now, you'll notice that our assets go up to 1,000. And what we do there is, and it doesn't show here, so let me actually just pop that in here. You'll notice that everything in Kenna is actually very, very easily customizable. So I can decide what I want to view. So you'll notice our priority level here. Now this is actually set by you. Typically we would get this from your CMDB. So if you've set asset priority within your CMDB, we would just pull that right into Kenna. If you haven't set asset priority, then we automatically default to a priority level of 10. But you can actually change that priority level very easily for a single asset, or you can even bulk do it by simply selecting it and setting a priority, and you can change that right away. But what we do is we take that score, we take the highest score, the highest scored vulnerability on any particular asset, and then we multiply that by the asset priority. So in this case, we had a vulnerability score of 100. We multiply that by the priority level that you've set, and that's how we get 1,000. So you now have an asset risk score of 1,000 out of a scale from 0 to 1,000. So you're definitely going to want to work on these first. But then you're going to notice that, in this case, I have almost 260,000 vulnerabilities in my environment across 3,100 assets. So it's a lot for me to look at. So we have this nice filtering system across the top. So if I say, I really just want to take a look at what are these top priorities that have active internet breaches against them, that are easily exploitable, malware exploitable, and what we consider popular targets. And popular targets, and let me just show you this. You notice that there's a little question mark on each of these things, and that's all throughout the Kenna UI. So if I have a question on what the heck is a popular target, I can click on that and it'll tell me exactly what it is. So, but in short, a popular target is we take a look at the top 5% of all vulnerabilities across our customer database over the past 6 months. So, and then when something falls into popular target realm, we actually bump up your score because we see that is a much essentially it's being targeted more frequently, so it's much more risky because it goes back to what your current attacker activity is. But now we actually say we can see that we've filtered things down to 449 vulnerabilities. It's going to be a little easier for me to handle. Still a lot, But I'd rather take a look at 449 than 260,000. Call me silly, but that's just me. You'll also notice that your score went up. And that's natural because this is the risk score based on this filtering. So we've already filtered by the riskiest vulnerabilities we have in our environment, so that would naturally go up. But then let me go now to the dashboard, because this is really what I was referring to earlier. All those little dots on your scatter plot are really having to do with risk meters. So this is, again, all customizable. And again, because I'm set up as a CISO, I'm going to see several dozen of them here, way more than you probably want to look at. But these are all customizable by my organization. So if I have a group that I want to say, if I have, say, my Adobe group, I would actually filter by Adobe, set up a new risk meter, and now I have one just for Adobe. But let's look into the ACCA critical. When I click on that, I can actually go back into my Explore tab, but now it's filtered. You'll notice it's only 6,600 vulnerabilities. But that is because it's filtered only by the ACCA critical group. And you'll notice I could have actually clicked on it from that dashboard view, or I can click on it from here. You'll notice two new buttons actually show up. One is top fixes, the other is reporting. We'll get into reporting in just a little bit, but let me click on top fixes, because if I have a risk score of 910 out of a possible score of 1,000, I'm not happy, and I'm probably going to want to fix that right away. So top fixes, this is really the end result of our remediation intelligence engine. And what essentially that's doing is we're not only prioritizing all of the different vulnerabilities you have in your organization, but we're actually helping you come to a decision on what you should truly remediate first. And everything in Kenna is very, very specifically quantitatively measured. So not only is your risk score today 910, but we'll tell you if you actually do this particular remediation, it's actually going to reduce your risk score by exactly 7 points. So, and you'll notice that there are a lot of different top fix groups here. In fact, there will be up to 10 that will include in the UI at any given point in time. But you'll notice that that they go from kind of in descending order in terms kind of diminishing returns. So from left to right, the highest risk score reduction to the lowest risk score reduction. So if we were to go all the way back down here, it only reduces it by 2 points, whereas here we actually reduce it by 7. So for each one, you'll notice there's anywhere between 1 and 3 fixes per top fix group. So in this case, it's 2. This case it's 3. This case it's 1. So you kind of get the points. But if I decide, okay, yes, this is the one that I really want to do, you'll notice that both are actually listed right here. We'll tell you, we'll kind of diagnose it for you, tell you exactly what's going on. What is the consequence? What does it actually do? What's your solution? Again, this is your fix. And again, it's when there's a patch or any other public remediation available, we hyperlink straight out to that. What CVEs is it going to address? And again, hyperlinks. So if you need to know, okay, I'm not going to memorize all 100,000 plus CVEs in the world, so I don't know what 2009-4484 is, but I can click on that and I can get a lot more information on it. What assets is it affecting in my environment? And then scanner ID. This is really, the scanner ID is really there for places where you have multiple scanners. Maybe one catches it, one doesn't, or maybe they diagnose it a little differently. You can actually use this scanner ID to do some troubleshooting in your environment. But once I've done this, I've said, okay, this is what I'm going to fix. You'll notice now in our demo environment, we actually have all the various ticketing solutions that are integrated here. But let's say for example, you have Jira in your environment. Only the Jira one would show up. The others would not. So once I say yes, this is what I want to use, I simply click on Create Jira Issue. It brings up the actual Jira window. So I'm actually in Jira at the moment. Technically, I'm no longer in Kenna. I'm in Jira. So I go ahead and choose my project. Maybe I give a little summary here. It's a bug. I want to assign it the highest priority. We can assign it any particular owner. I like to assign things to Ed. He needs more work. And it's a security issue, and now a due date. So if you already have SLAs set up in Kenna, this would actually automatically populate. But if not, then we can actually just go ahead and set our SLA and then say something about the environment. Now, the other thing that you'll notice here is that in your description, you'll notice that all of that intelligence that we just went through is sucked right into the JIRA ticket itself. So that way, when you send it over to IT, they actually know what to fix, how to fix it, and why it's been prioritized. Now, as soon as I hit create JIRA issue, which I won't do in the demo environment, otherwise I'll get screamed at because we share the demo environment, now you've actually set up a bidirectional communication. So that means that if Ed actually does his job, and closes out that ticket, it's actually going to send me an alert. It will tell me within Kenna that he's closed that ticket. But the remediation will actually not be reflected until we do our next scan. Once we do our next scan, now we're actually going to see, once Kenna validates it essentially, then the risk score will be reduced. But it happens, and Ed's kind of a shifty guy. I know this won't happen in your environments, but it happens with people like Ed, where he'll close the ticket and not actually perform the remediation. So in that case, Kenna will send us another alert, and it'll simply be called ticket closed, but not remediated. And now we can actually have a conversation with Ed, and probably his manager as well. He's used to it, though, because we have a lot of those kinds of conversations with people like Ed. But the point being that this bidirectional communication, so you are going to know exactly what's going on at all times. And if IT has a question, they actually see that you open the ticket, and they can communicate back with you as well. Now, the other thing that I said was going to happen is we can actually go to view report. So you're reporting, again, demo data, so you can see a lot of straight lines here and some data that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but here's your reporting. Now, first of all, it's going to tell you everything you really want to know about that group. How many assets, how many vulnerabilities, how many fall into each of those filter areas that we talked about earlier. Obviously, you want to know what the score is, but then what's the highest the score has ever been? What's the lowest it's ever been? What has it been the last week, month, or past 90 days? And then you'll notice a whole bunch of charts here, and all of those are totally customizable. By you can have any range you want, including no range whatsoever. It's all time. And then you'll see things like the risk timelines, the total assets and vulnerabilities over time, and just a ton of information here. Now, one of the things that I get when I demonstrate this to prospective customers, a lot of people kind of freak out saying, whoa, that's a lot more information. I want it, but that's more information than I want my manager to see. But that's okay, because this is actually a template that we've set up that gives you all charts. I can very, very easily add a new report template, and I can turn off whatever I don't want them to see, name that, new tab. And that creates a new one, and now you'll notice that those things I turned off are no longer there. And then I can export this to a PDF as well, because you notice every time I moused over something, it would actually kind of show that it's live data, and you may not want that. So you can export it to a PDF, you can email it out, or even if you're giving a live presentation to, say, the board, they won't see that it's live data, and they won't therefore really be encouraged to ask you to drill down more. But that's essentially it. Now, a couple other quick things I do want to show you. Going back to my home screen, some of you may have noticed this little kind of fire here, and it says 144 million threats this week. And then this nice little up arrow that says show. This is what we refer to as volume and velocity. So Kenna doesn't only take in all of these feeds, but we also kind of see all of those different vulnerabilities through the lens of volume and velocity. So we want to know what's coming more quickly, what's coming in mass quantities all of a sudden. So essentially, as the volume increases, you're actually going to see it go up on the essentially up on the chart here, and with the intensity, you're going to see a bigger and darker circle. So let's just check it. And again, anytime you mouse over it, you're going to see exactly what is in there. So we're looking at CVE 1999, 0517 here. Now some of these in my demo environment, let's just try clicking on one of those. Some of my demo environment aren't actually set up, but others are. So let me just see. Yeah, okay, so this one reacted the way it should. So if I click on this, it actually now filters just for that particular vulnerability. So you'll notice that there's 89 instances, and so that way if I'm concerned about that one, I go straight to that, and now I can actually see exactly what's going on in my environment. And then the last thing I'll just very quickly point out, we have our little settings wheel here. This is how I set up profiles, new users, new user roles. Like I mentioned before, everything here within Kenna is role-based access control. So even if I have all of these roles that already exist, but if I want to set up a new user role, I name it, I can actually select, here are the specific risk meters they can actually see, the specific applications they can actually see. I can actually say read only or write, or I can customize the access. And this is how granular our RBAC can actually get. So you can actually do this by risk meter group, by pretty much anything you want to do. So that's really important for a lot of our customers. You can set it up for two-factor authentication for additional levels of security. API keys. You can set, come up with different asset settings. Here's your SLA settings that I referred to earlier. So if you actually set up in your SLA settings, okay, if here's your score, your score range, here's your specific SLA. So you can do a lot of different things all within the Kenna platform here, and then even your alerts. If you want to do in-app or email alerts or both, you can actually do it for a lot of different aspects of it. And that's about it. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to go to the site, call your customer success manager, or just start going through other assets that we have here. So thank you very much. Okay, I'm assuming you can edit this out, so I'm just going to talk. How the heck do we get out of this now?
It's not escape, but I can edit this. It's not a problem.
Here, you know what? If we go to...
Yep.
There you go. Now just